think it's interesting that the title of this exhibition, Clara has chosen Tarros de Chutney. She's inspired, I think, by my passion for making homemade preserves. When things were difficult, when my children were small and I felt very frustrated, I didn't have a role, I had no status, I was not considered to be doing anything valuable, although I knew I was. So somehow making these jars of chutney were very beautiful objects. They maybe were useful. Maybe I could make some money from them, but I really loved the process of making things and having these rows of objects I'd produced, which maybe is like this exhibition here. It's all my work over many years. Well, I have this idea for a new major project called Epic Domestic. I want to start a domestic revolutionary party for the 21st century. And so for this exhibition, I produced some of the first propaganda material. All revolutionary parties need propaganda. So they need a poster, and they need big paintings to inspire people. And they have many plans for the revolution. I am the leader, but I will be inspiring people, I hope, to take to the streets, to wear strange, exotic, and odd, absurd outfits, and to dance to celebrate our domestic labor. I think so many things have not worked in explaining how important the everyday lives of families and caring for people is. So maybe this idea will work. You have to try. Oh, it's definitely a feminist revolution, yeah. Before I knew what feminist meant, I was a feminist when I was, that's why I'm called Bobby, because when I was little, I realized that being a girl had no importance. So for a while, I pretended to be a boy, Bobby. But then I carried on like that, but I'm very happy to be a woman, but have to carry on campaigning. Yeah, I think what I find really inspiring these days is how ideas come and go, people take time to adjust to them, and I find the interest of young people, I'm very, very interested in the ideas of young people and how they are sort of adapting ideas and debating ideas. I was, I suppose, part of this movement in the 1970s, and then it became very, everybody sort of seemed to think that everything was all right, which it wasn't. And if you spoke about it in the 80s or 90s, it was like, you know, you don't need to do that, which was ridiculous because really not much had changed. And so this last 10, 15 years of this energy and excitement and a kind of growth, maturing in how you communicate. I think social media and ideas have done a lot to air these questions and to share them with a wider range of women rather than just one group of women leading the movement. And I love that.
Well, I'd had this secret worry all the time that I was pregnant that I could never admit to anyone. It was a terror that when I had the baby, I wouldn't be able to love it. It really was scary because I found other people's babies when I was pregnant absolutely disgusting. I couldn't bear to touch them even. So you can imagine the huge relief when she was born and I loved her, I adored her. So that was great. Well, I didn't realize that, you know, you sort of pushed your body a bit when you had a baby. And I was a bit hyperactive, to be honest, actually. And so what happened was I got very ill. I got women's trouble. I won't, you know, talk about it. But it was a kind of nightmare because whenever I spoke to anyone professional about it, they'd say things like, have you got problems with your marriage? No, I'm ill. It went on and on. It was horrific. And I spent a great deal of time in hospital. Oh, it's lovely. It's really cool, actually. And it was, well, what was so terrible was that I couldn't get better. It just went on. And in the end, the only thing that seemed to help was staying in bed. And I stayed in bed for about 5 months, which, as you can imagine, is quite difficult when you've got a baby.
Well, I have a daughter and a daughter-in-law, and I know many young people with children, and my son, and my son-in-law. And what I find interesting and hopeful is they're more collaborative, but it's very difficult because they have to work. There's more pressure to, everybody must earn money and work, but it's so exciting to have children in the family and to carry on this conversation really with them all about how you do this. I think you just have to accept when you have children under 3, you just exist with this chaos because it's so much work. But I can't say what I recommend. I can just say to discuss it. I think it should be something that everybody in that community is involved with, that caring for small children. What struck me when my children were small, I realized I was doing probably the most important thing of my life with my husband. You know, these children, these tiny children were the future, and yet I had no status. I couldn't understand why what I was doing was not seen as valuable and important to society. And that dialogue continues, but I have great faith in young people understanding and changing things and learning from us, you know, what we did wrong, whatever. So yes, it's not resolved yet, but it's always interesting. It's interesting that when I did drawing on a mother's experience, I did it for me just once, I thought, to show to myself almost what I was living with. And it was extraordinary that there was such excitement, and I did it again and again and again, many, many times, over 300 times. And I think it's stories like this. It's an unusual way of telling that story, to draw with food, but it connects with people's experience. I was quite shocked to begin with when young men would say, "Oh, you remind me of my mother," and I think, "Oh," or "No, you remind me of my grandmother." But everybody has this. Everybody's a child at some point, and they have aunts, mothers, grandmothers, and this role has been so invisible, so unimportant, seemingly, no status, no, and yet we all know really innately it's what is our foundation. So to tell that story and to be so subversive and absurd, I think is of interest to people. Seems to be. Well, I decided when I was young to wear an overall, we call it a white overall, because I didn't know what to wear, but also Joseph Boyce, who was the man, he always wears this fishing waistcoat and a hat. And I was like, hello, I'm here. So I thought, okay, I will wear a domestic version. And it's anonymous. Whenever you wear this sort of coat, you could be working in a shop, or you could be a nurse, or you could be a cleaner. And yet it has a power to repeat and repeat this outfit. My daily life is very good these days. I think finally it took me a lot of time. I kind of had all these unresolved issues, and so I went mad. I think sometimes it's part of being human. All of it had to get sorted, and I didn't balance. I was doing 4 jobs, you know, the house, the wife, working for other people, and feeling too responsible. And it took a period to change myself and to change my life. And I love everyday life. I just love everything about being in the street and seeing people go shopping and talking and cooking and watching television. I like watching television and having family meals and just being. And I feel very lucky that at this stage of my life I am so happy with that, and yet able to be myself and to be an artist.